Kvaratskhelia steadying himself! A star in the making. And there's the only goal! Sabini with it! After 11 years, once again, Milan are the champions of Italy.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie A Sit Down, World Football Index's podcast for your Calcio to go. Gee, what are we going to talk about tonight? I'm Frank Ravello. He's Richard Carmen. I haven't the foggiest, Richard. I guess there was some game today. I don't know.
Yeah, Chelsea, Real Madrid. No, of course. We're going to talk about the all-Italian quarterfinals and another Pioli masterclass.
That my tweet that I had it, and it was amazing how divided the responses were. I mean, there were a lot of people. I think there was probably more people kind of in support of what I had to say about it, but there was a lot of people like, "Oh, he didn't know that Inter and Juve were going to either lose or draw," and then coming up with all this other stuff and just what about 20 points from 15 games in 2023, and they even. It's just like listening to them, trying to like do their best to just come back. I said, what did I talk about? I talked about 2 games that they drew with a rotated squad. And I talked about a first leg win against Napoli and having a fit team to choose from for the second leg. I didn't talk about the beginning of 2023. Okay. Yeah. They did. People try too hard on Twitter. That's the thing.
I think what the historians of the game understand this, but I think many of the younger followers don't understand quite as well, is that you have to know your team and what they are searching for, right? So Real Madrid, for example, they have the most Champions League by far, right? But they crave the league title. We've seen managers win the Champions League, lose the league title, and get fired. They've seen also managers that win the league title and not win the Champions League, and they're fine. Milan, on the other hand, they focus on Champions League. And of the 7 Champions League titles that they won, only once have they won the Scudetto. They average third place of the 7 Scudetto, 7 Champions League that they won: 62, 68, 89, 94, 2003, and 2007. I feel like I'm missing one out there, but anyway, they
when they went back to back in 1990, 89,
Napoli,
I think
Napoli
they
won
did.
90.
Yeah, Napoli won the title in 90, and Milan, I don't even think were they third or fourth or something like
Third.
that, I think.
Third.
Yeah, so
They averaged third position. So
yeah. So it was, kind of a bizarre year. Maradona won with Napoli in 90, and Milan won the Champions League, that final against Benfica, which was with the goal by Frank Rijkaard. To give them back-to-back Champions League wins, and I believe that was their 4th at the time.
Yeah.
My whole point is that it was their 4th. Yeah, go ahead.
But my point, the whole thing is that you have to know your team, and in this case, Milan, they focus on the Champions League, and they'll give up a little bit in the Serie A table. As long as they're in the Champions League spot, that's their main goal. But their main focus is the Champions League. That's always been their bread and butter.
Yeah,
what they've always focused on, and so you have to know your team. And we would all love an Inter treble every year, right? We would all love that from 2011, but it's not feasible. In Milanisti, we've never experienced that. We've only had one time we won a Scudetto and the Champions League at the same time. So while we would love that, realistically, we know that the team focuses on Champions League, and that's where their bread and butter is. So they're going to naturally rest some players during the league, and if they get some points, great. If they win, even better. If they lose, that's not their focus at the time. So
the run of trebles. There was a very, this spurt of trebles. Inter, and I think Barcelona did it, and I think Bayern did it. There was a very small window for it because it went from, the teams, the clubs that had the money to spend on the players versus the clubs that had no idea what to do with their resources. And now these smaller clubs with less resources are getting a lot smarter about how they spend their money and who they attract and who they recruit to come play for their teams, and field teams that are relatively competitive. So it's, the treble is, there was a period where a half a dozen teams, it was astonishing when Inter did it, but Barcelona you thought could do it. Bayern you thought could do it. But the treble now is really hard to win. okay, because of the combination. I mean, especially if you look at the Premier League team, all of those teams have money, and all of those teams can strengthen their squads. You can't go out and realistically think you can win every competition. You can try.
The last team to do it, I think, was Bayern when they won the quadruple with Hansi Flick, I guess it was that year. That's the last team to do it, and it doesn't happen as often as you would think it does.
Yeah, and you better have a few things going for you. One, you better have a very deep squad, and you better have a squad of players that are okay with understanding that they're going to be asked to sit games from time to time to keep everything fresh. You better be healthy, not run into a litany of injury issues as most teams do over the course of the season. Yeah. And then, certain games are going to have to, you're not going to dominate every game that you're out there. Certain games you're going to the ball's going to have to bounce your way favorably for you to win. Yep. Okay. So there are so many forces that make winning a treble hard. Okay. Exactly. And the top clubs are playing around 55 to 60 matches now. That's a lot of games. Yeah. So, we kind of got into this tangent here about the treble. So, and teams, you should be winning your league if you're this far into the Champions League. That's not always the case. So,
and in particular with Milan, that has never been the case. So,
yeah, if Milan suffers and to your point, Milan Champions League success has come to the cost of their league ambitions regularly. Yes. So, and that's they're all in. So now they've got two fronts for which they can compete and remain in the Champions League. They can win this particular Champions League, be a seeded team as the holders, or they can finish top four. They're keeping both avenues available. Okay. Yeah. And that's what you have to do at this stage of the season. And you've got to be smart about your team selections, and you're going to have to rotate. We'll get into that when we talk about breaking down match week 30. For some reason, fans out there hate it when their team rotates. It's essential. You got to do it.
And Interisi are in the same boat. They're feeling the same thing. Their team's struggling. They're fifth at the moment, and their team is deep in the Champions League, and so it's the same. They're going through the same things. 1 week Inzaghi in, the next week Inzaghi out. It's time of year, I guess.
Yeah, Kyle, six trophies, but they had everything fall the right way for them. Everybody stayed fit.
Yeah.
Everything went the right way for them game wise, just all across the board. So you need a lot of extreme things to happen to be able to win a treble. I think it's kind of getting underrated. So
Real Madrid doesn't have a treble. Look at that. I mean,
but they've got 14 champions. They got 14 Champions Leagues. Do you think they're complaining about not having a treble?
Yeah.
So, they might be. So, but we will talk about that with rotation and the importance of squad, what you've got with your squad and that sort of thing with some of the performances that came out, because Milan wasn't the only team in this boat. Practically every team.
Napoli did it. Napoli did it. Inter did it. Fiorentina did it. I mean, Roma did it.
Every team rotated. Fiorentina didn't rotate as extensively as the other teams did, but they did they certainly did, Right. Terzic over Biraghi, for example. What's another one? I think they had Castrovilli instead of Bonaventura, although Castrovilli played well. I saw that. I watched.
I'd probably pick him over Bonaventura anyway, but that's.
I agree. So, anyway, we'll talk about all of that. We will talk about everything that happened in match week 30. We'll preview the rest of Europe here tonight. We'll obviously play the world's most famous hashtag game, Who Won Calcio Twitter, but we are going to start off, Richard, with Leg 2, Diego Armando Maradona, Napoli, and Milan.
Yeah, fantastic tie. First leg was an interesting one. Since our last podcast, we had two legs here, legs that happened, and in this one, Milan coming in with a 1-0 lead into this game. Interesting, the first leg for sure. Milan Pioli masterclass, Milan masterclass, I would say. I know. Emotions running high, both sides, fan bases after that game. People talking about questionable refereeing. I ended up going back and watching the game because I also wasn't sure how refereeing was. Went back and watched the game, and honestly, I can say I have no qualms about the refereeing in that first game. Some really great plays defensively by both teams. There were some missed calls both ways, missed penalties both ways, but it was a pretty even game. I think the yellows by Napoli that kind of hamstrung them in the second leg, I think were deserved. It was more about hot-headedness and some stupid plays by them, by Anguissa in particular. But where we are 1-0 game. Wonderful performance by Milan. Get the 1-0 lead at home. Going over to the Diego Armando Maradona, and the home team come out with Meret, Di Lorenzo, Rahmani, Juan Jesus in place of Kim Min-jae, who was suspended with double yellow, Mario Rui. Midfield with Ndobele in place of Anguissa, Lobotka, Zielinski, Politano in place of Lozano, Osimhen, and who's Osimhen's back in the lineup, and then Havrashelia, of course. Strong lineup. I mean, this is a pretty deep Napoli squad. We've seen what they did in Serie A. They've terrorized Serie A. They made it their own playground. But again, to have Osimhen back, I think, despite the other moves that happen, in particular Juan Jesus, Osimhen having him back, have the best striker in Serie A, one of the best strikers in Europe, is a huge boost for Napoli going into the second leg.
It was definitely, and I think I read right. I don't think Napoli have played Milan yet this season where Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen were playing together.
Correct.
So this was the first time. So that was a new wrinkle for Milan to have to deal with. So that was interesting. On the flip side, how does Napoli diffuse Milan on the counterattack with a center back who's only played 7 games for them this season and not having the presence of Kim Min-jae? Yeah. That was going to be one of those factors. And then how would Ndombele, assert himself replacing Anguissa? I thought Ndombele actually played pretty well.
I do too.
So
Lobotka was much better this game than last game.
Just judging on how they played, if you want to just look at them from a performance standpoint, those missing, there wasn't really that big a drop off. Jesus was okay. You could probably point to him for maybe, leaving Giroud or getting caught ball watching a little bit or being a little bit out of position for the Giroud goal. And then letting him also get in position in the run of play on the chance before that Merritt saved. But I mean, okay, would Kim have done anything differently? Again, we're not going to get into hypotheticals here. So, no. But solid team. You knew what their responsibility was going to be, being a goal down.
Yeah, and I got to also say that Alex Meret was fantastic in this game. Last game as well, too. Made some huge saves in this one. But yeah, strong lineup overall by Napoli. They came out and attacking. Milan with their starting 11. Mike Magnon coming off his world-class save against Di Lorenzo in the first leg. Back 4 of Calabria, Chiar, Tamori, Hernandez. Midfield 3 of Tonali, Benacer, Krunic with Brahim Diaz, and Rafael Leao on the wings, and Olivier Giroud. Unchanged lineup from the first leg. Again, unchanged. Good, solid lineup. I think Calabria, as Kyle pointed out, was outstanding in this match. He was also outstanding in the first leg, too. And as was Magnon. Thoughts on Milan's lineup going into this one?
Calabria played? I thought the guy's name was Calbira.
The freaking announcers, man. Drive me crazy.
Holy shit. Did you?
Both teams he screwed up. Both teams he screwed up. But Calabria was the biggest one.
And what was he calling? He was calling him Kvaratskhelia or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. At least try. I know it's not the Premier League and all the names that you're used to knowing, but you have an audience that follows these guys and might get offended by your mispronunciation of their names. So, that said, I wasn't offended. I just thought it was silly. But this is what I said prior to, after the Bologna match and coming into this. I said Pioli has a fully fit squad to choose from. Nobody's suspended.
Yeah.
Played some guys as substitutes a reasonable amount of minutes in the Bologna game without having too much exposure, and got out of there against an informed Bologna with a draw. We'll talk about that later. But fully fit, fully healthy team, which probably neutralizes a little bit of what kind of factor Napoli could be, because Napoli obviously was without 2 guys that they regularly depended on this season. So, but yeah, it was, standard fare here with what Pioli has done over the last few weeks.
What I thought Napoli did well in the first leg was they attacked Milan aggressively in the first half, and in the beginning of the second half. Milan did well in the first game to kind of counteract it in the middle in between. and Milan weren't really too threatened despite the numerous chances that Napoli had. You knew that Napoli would come out with a big wave. The question was, how long would that wave last? In this game, it seemed like it was forever. The first half, at least, if you're from Milan's side, probably felt like 90 minutes there as it is. Napoli from the get-go came out on the attack. They had something like 7 corners in like the first 5 minutes of the game. It was something ridiculous. Onslaught after onslaught. But to Milan's credit, they look fairly unfazed. They look very composed back there, very disciplined. They look like they were a team defensively, what we saw in the first leg. And the announcers made a comment on this, that in Champions League, Milan have been defensively going into this game, had 5 shutouts in a row, have just been superb. Despite what they look like in the league, defensively in Champions League, this is where they brought it. And you knew they would have to bring it in this game because Napoli were looking for goals early. My worry as a Milanista is that they concede a goal early and then the floodgates open because Napoli can do that to you. They're that good. But Milan held tight. They held strong through the first half. A couple chances here and there for Milan, but for the most part, all Napoli, one-way traffic. And we got a break, though, in the 43rd minute. Wonderful counterattack. Kvaratskhelia, or whatever the announcer called him, goes for a pass, misses Ndombele, right to Leao, and Leao goes coast to coast, world-class slalom down the pitch. Like you said, everyone's ball watching him as he's going down into the goal area. Finds Olivier Giroud, who on his 3rd chance, he missed a penalty earlier, missed another sitter earlier, but this one, empty net basically, and he scores the goal, 1-0 for Milan, goal just before halftime. Huge goal for Milan, huge goal for Olivier Giroud, who was obviously looking like possibly the GOAT in this game after missing that penalty. But an excellent performance first half by Milan, especially with that goal. What a run by Leao to set up the whole thing.
Yeah, a few things here, and we'll come back to the goal here, momentarily. One of the comments that I made on Twitter, after Giroud missed his second chance, I said Giroud's the kind of striker that keep giving him chances, he's going to get one. Yep. Okay, he's not one of these guys that dwells on a big chance missed. He's
a classic big 9.
Exactly. That's some of the psychology that comes with playing that position. Yeah. You have to you have to forget it. Because the next one's coming before you know it. Something always taught my players, and they miss a chance and start kicking the ground or start getting frustrated. I said, you know what? Hey, the next one's coming pretty quick. All right. Forget that happened and get on with it with the next one. Yeah. So and that was a classic example of that, just the professionalism to be in the position to be able to be on the end of that, and just an unbelievable run by Leao. The concerns I had over the first 15 minutes, and I said this on Twitter as well, I must have counted about 6 giveaways by Milan.
Yeah,
in the first 15 minutes. And I don't think it had anything to do with how Napoli were pressing. I just thought they were just sloppy technical mistakes passing the ball, in particular passing the ball. Leao had 3 in the first 15 minutes, whether passes were underhit or misplaced or that sort of thing. And you just saw, it was one of those things where you're kind of getting a little aggrieved because the defenders are doing all of this work to win the ball. And then you get the ball, you're starting to work your way through the middle third, and then they're misplacing passes in the areas that you don't want to misplace them. I mean, perfectly ripe to get set up on the counter. And that started to concern me a little bit, but the back four, everybody held their nerve. They won the ball. They'd start going again. And the first time that Milan properly executed, I thought, it led to the penalty. So that, the combination between Leao and Theo Hernandez, which we've seen so many times now, and then unfortunately Giroud didn't finish the penalty. I thought it was a bad penalty. I thought it was still a decent save by Merritt. But then Milan started to link a couple of things up. I think that was, if anything, you block out what happened on the penalty and you say, hey, we can play with them. We just created something. We created something else, and it's coming. But I think because of the way the defense performed, with Kvaratskhelia coming at Calabria, I'll pronounce their names right, constantly, and Calabria. There was the one where he had that perfectly timed sliding tackle when the rare time that Kvaratskhelia went to his left and went to the end line. I mean, Calabria misses by 3 inches. He's getting Varatelia, and it's a penalty.
Yeah.
So, like, that tackle had to be perfect, and it was. The positioning of Simon Kjaer, I thought was outstanding. And for the first 20 minutes of the game, I really felt like he was the guy that was really keeping things glued together.
Yes.
Back there with his leadership, his veteran presence. And then Tomori, and I'm glad that Thierry Henry brought this up after the game. Victor Osimhen, how do you defend him in crossing situations? You better fucking know where he is. Yep. And the best way to know where he is, be touch tight on him. Okay? Be able to feel where he is. Yep. All right. Otherwise, he's gonna slip into the spaces, and he's gonna punish you for losing him. All right. And Tomori made it a point, and he said it in a post match. He said, when it was time for Napoli to cross, I made sure I knew where Osimhen was, and I was right where Osimhen was every time, so that I could get to the ball first. So, and you've seen Osimhen just snipe teams just by letting defenders drift and then just getting away from them and getting into positions. I thought it was a disciplined performance from Tomori in that regard too, because I don't think Osimhen had a sniff in the first half.
No, he didn't. And he's a top 3 striker in the world. And the fact that he was fairly quiet in that first half, it goes a long way to talk about what Tomori and Kjaer both did. And like Tomori's comments are spot on. It was great to hear his comments. We retweeted it on the Twitter page. He said, "Yeah, I get up tight on him and got in his face and made it difficult on him." And Osimhen still got his by the end of the game. It's worth noting also Politano, who one guy who I thought who had the potential to really unlock this defense. You saw Napoli going with Kvaratskhelia on the left-hand side. Milan counteracted that with Calabria and usually a double team, whether it's Krunic or Brahim Diaz, or someone helping him out to kind of balance that out and really canceling him out. And so I figured that Matteo Politano would be the guy to really unlock the Milan defense. He came out injured, though, unfortunately, rolled his ankle, it seemed like, on the 34th minute. In comes Irving Lozano. Not a bad replacement. I mean, I think of the two, that's just me from the outside, I think Politano is slightly better than Lozano and all the way around play. But Irving Lozano is not a bad player to have. I would love to have in Milan, a player of that quality. But he goes out. Also, Mario Rui also picked up an injury. So, Napoli already struggling with, a couple guys had to bring up off the bench, like Ndombele. Now you got 2 guys, Mario Rui, the second guy to come off, and Oliveira to come on. Another good upgrade there, Oliveira, solid left back there. So, but 2 substitutions Spalletti had to make in the first half that did win against plan, and then obviously the goal to boot to put them down 1-0 at halftime. So, a little bit of regrouping there for Spalletti and company, but you knew they're going to come back out firing again. They did in that second half. And the second half kind of really opened up. Obviously, it had to, because Napoli had to get a goal. 2 goals down overall. So they needed 2 goals just to get it to extra time, 3 goals to win it. And so you knew they're gonna attack even more than what they're already doing, which is hard to believe. And Milan had some more opportunities, with Leao and some of the counterattacking that they had. We did see some substitutions through Junior Messias for Brahim Diaz. When LG Elmas came on for Ndombele, I thought that was a good substitution for Spalletti, because he's another super talented offensive player for Spalletti's side. And Raspadori came on also around a little bit later in 74th minute. But Magnon had to make some big saves in the second half. The defense still looked very strong. A bend don't break, as someone said in the chat.
Yeah.
And the game continued on, and we in the stoppage time. Napoli finally get a goal through Osimhen. Not enough. Milan win, or they draw the game 1-1. Win the 2 legs. It's what we kind of talked about, and people scoffed at at the beginning, saying Milan have Champions League DNA. This is proof of what we've been saying, is these teams that have the history in the Champions League find a way to bring out that magic. I mean, Real Madrid, we see what they do, but they're not the only ones. It's just something about this tournament that every team has their own tournament or thing. Milan, like Real Madrid, is the Champions League. They step up. And I remember, when you talk about Champions League DNA, everyone's like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Oh, look at their DNA. Look at last year." Well, look at them now. They're in the semifinals. So that goes a long way. Maldini, you got to love what he's been doing with the team, him and Masada. And then Pioli, all the critics that he's had, he is a fantastic tournament manager, as is Inzaghi on the other side of Inter.
Yeah.
But Pioli, what he's done has been incredible with this team to get them to the semifinals with guys like Krunic and Salamakers and Messias, and still finding a way to get to the semifinals. That's a masterful job by him.
Yeah, it was. He got it right. I think he got some help. I mean, you wonder what presence Rui has if he's on the full time with some of his crossing from various positions that can put added pressure on Milan. Oliveira is just not the crosser. It's not his game. So that was to me, that was more dangerous than than Politano coming out.
Yeah.
Milan almost seemed like they took a page out of Chelsea's book when Chelsea played Milan in the Champions. Like, what did Chelsea do defensively as a team in their shape? They shaded everything in the direction of Leao and Theo Hernandez, and they dared Milan to attack them down the right because they knew they couldn't. And Milan didn't really dare Napoli to win with Politano or Lozano, but I think they were going to take their chances with maybe a little more isolation there, with a little more 1v1 and hoping that Theo, and I'll tell you what, it has to be said. When you ask him to do it and you put him in an environment like this, Theo Hernandez can defend. Okay. And I never thought I'd be saying that about him. There was something that he was always naive at. And if you want to split hairs about the performance of the back four and the goalkeeper and say who might have been the weakest player, out of him, it probably was Theo Hernandez.
Yeah.
But he was still pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So
I would say this, the two glaring mistakes that he had in the game were leaving Oliveira twice open at the end of the game, where Oliveira should have scored both headers and missed wide. Glaring misses by Oliveira, but
he still loses people in set pieces, which is concerning. Which is concerning. I agree. I think that some recognition for the midfielders as well. Benacer, Tonali, Krunic all did a great job of getting into supporting positions for defenders who were defending the ball. Napoli couldn't self-create anything. They was going to have to carve out something special with the way Milan were situated and the way they were organized. I thought it would be a big chance for Zielinski to be special in this game, but I think he had the one chance from distance that didn't really trouble Maignan, and that was it. So, disappointing performance for him. But I thought the midfield held up well. And then Mike Maignan, he's the best goalkeeper in the world right now. I mean, France might have a convincing argument that they would have repeated the World Cup if he was fit and playing over Lloris. So, it's just I can't think of a goalkeeper on the planet right now playing better than Mike Maignan at the moment. I think he's been outstanding, especially here in the Champions League, to just concede. And I know that Tatarusanu was involved in this a little bit with a couple of games, but Milan as a team to just concede one goal in 6 Champions League games, that's astonishing. In an era of positive attacking, you see lots of goals in these Champions League games and in these ties. To come out of that, and Maignan, clean sheet at Tottenham. This is his last 3 Champions League games. Clean sheet at Tottenham, clean sheet at home against Napoli, and gave up on 94th minute against Napoli at the Maradona. 1 goal in 3 games in 3 very difficult environments. I can't think of a goalkeeper in world football playing better than him at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hands down. And I think that Donnarumma deal, where him leaving and he coming in, was maybe the steal of the century for Milan. Before I start gloating about Napoli, is Mike Maignan, and it's way too early to tell in terms of how good he is, but talent-wise, he's got to be the best keeper Milan's had in their history. That's a big statement by me. And I say longevity-wise, he's got a lot to prove still, but talent-wise, I think he may be the best. And maybe that's just nearsightedness over the last, 20, 30 years, but, he's pretty damn good.
I think in terms of raw talent, instincts, and shot stopping, absolutely. I think he's probably he's certainly as good as anybody they've seen.
Yeah.
Dita had his moments of clumsiness.
He's a big game player, Dita was, but he was
Yep.
certainly clumsy. Certainly clumsy.
Yep.
Love him to death.
Abbiati, it was just a shame that he never got a
his younger years
platform
he was really
to really shine.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, even further back. Some of these banter guys before Donnarumma, Diego Lopez, no thank you. I mean,
yeah.
Sebastiano Rossi would probably be the only other one that I'd look at. And I said this before about Sebastiano Rossi. He was probably pretty unsung because of what was defending in front of him. Tassotti, Baresi, Costa Curta, and Maldini. But I'll tell you what, Rossi had the respect of those four guys.
Oh yeah.
And he was a very good goalkeeper and helped preserve things for Milan. I mean, he didn't get into that Italy 94 World Cup team because look at all the goalkeepers that Italy had back then. Pagliuca,
yeah.
Bucci, Peruzzi, Rossi, and who's the other? Marchigiani. So, I mean, it was really hard to crack the top three in goalkeepers in Italy back in the 90s. But to come back to it, I think that Maignan might be the most physically talented and probably and most instinctive of all the goalkeepers.
Yeah. That's saying a lot too with Donnarumma, who was a fantastic reflex shot stopper from Milan too. And Maignan is he's just another level. Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Napoli. There's a lot of people out there, scoffing at Napoli, saying that they're not that good, blah 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 blah. Like, look, Napoli are hands down the best team in Italy, hands down. Now you talk tournament play, it's a different beast, right? And it's where Inzaghi and Pioli have the advantage over Spalletti. But this Napoli team is the best team in Italy, one of the best teams in Europe still. Just look what they're doing in the league. They're dominating the league at the moment. The team that they have is just fantastic. I mean, Kvaratskhelia, just for him alone, he's getting double team all game long, and he's still getting his shots. If he wasn't naive, some of those power shots that he had early in the game where he did get by Calabria, he did get by Calabria a couple of times. He went for power instead of placement. A more savvy Kvaratskhelia, an older Kvaratskhelia maybe, would know how to curl that in, like Thierry Henry said, and go for the placement as opposed to trying to rocket past Maignan. Magnan's got the fastest reflexes in the game. You're not going to get by him like that. Placement would have probably done it for him, but he was still getting his job done. And this team is just so good. You can't take anything the way they've done this year. They fought till the very end. They got a goal in 94th minute. Part of me thought that maybe they're going to tie the game up. Part of me, I mean, that's how good they are, and you have to worry about a team like this. They're a quick strike offense. Yeah, they can lull you to sleep with a beautiful passing and get by you, but they can score really fast too. They're like the Kansas City Chiefs of Calcio, right? So full credit to what Spalletti and his men have done. You have to applaud everything they've done. The Champions League, they brought all the eyes from the Serie A from the way they played in Europe. And brought a lot more fans into the Serie A game, so you got to give them full credit. And all the players that they played a hell of a two legs with them. It was a great two-legged affair between the two teams here, and so nothing but applause for Spalletti and his men. I think they were much deserved the way they did perform in Champions League and in Serie A too. So kudos to them. Even though they're gonna go and win a Scudetto here. So
okay, a couple thoughts here. First of all, Napoli fans and Napoli in general is nothing to be ashamed of. It's Michael, we didn't really talk about the lack of connection between Fado and Osimhen, but we did talk about how they kind of were kept apart. Not in as many, certainly in more words than that, but anyway. And I told guys like Joe Fischetti and some of the others, Johnny over there at the Calcio guys, I said, look guys, Napoli's having an amazing season. The disappointment, this should sting, but this should not take away from what you are about to experience here in a few weeks. I mean, we went back you go back to August and go back to all the preseason talk. Nobody was talking about Napoli for the title.
No.
Okay. Nobody was even talking about Napoli for last 8. We thought Napoli could get out of the group that they were in when the group draw came out. We talked about it back then, but we didn't hail them for anything beyond that. So for them to be where they're at this season is special. For Milan to be where they're at this season is special, and for Inter to be where they're at is special. This is a special season to be a Serie A fan when you're seeing, how the teams are performing on the European landscape. But then you go back, coming back to Napoli, there is nothing to be ashamed of here. They're about to win this Scudetto in a few weeks. And would they have loved to have done the double and won the Champions League too? Absolutely. Why not? But the first Scudetto in 33 years for them, that's going to be a party in Naples. That town's going to be up for grabs once that's finally clinched.
Yeah.
And as far as this game, and Lacey and I were actually talking, just exchanging messages because he asked me, we were talking about what we thought and that sort of thing. And I said, boy, you better if Napoli gets an early one, this is going to be a problem. All the pressure's on Milan to keep Napoli out. That's where the pressure was for as long as they possibly can. They scored. When Milan scored, now all the pressure is on Napoli, and now they have to press. And they put them in situations. Where they're going to probably force more shots than they don't want to take. Than they would rather take. That's what happens with the dynamics of being the away team with a 1-0 lead and then scoring first, and now having a 2-0 lead and telling that, well, now you got to get 2 on us, okay? And we're going to set up to make sure you don't get 2. If you get 1, fine. If you get 2, great. We're going to have to do this for another 30 minutes. If you get 3, congratulations, you unlocked us. So, but when Giroud scored that goal in the 43rd minute, all of the pressure was on Napoli. Milan could just make them predictable, sit back, and force the mistakes, make sure they had cover for each other, win the ball, and take their chances on the break. Milan played the game plan that you had to play. And I think that it would have been interesting if Napoli scored within the first 10 minutes. What kind of game would this have been?
Yeah, exactly.
Napoli might have.
I feared a blowout.
That's just it. I think Napoli would have walked it. And I don't like to get into hypotheticals, but I can only imagine if Napoli got a goal in the first 10 minutes, forget it. All hell breaks loose after that.
And I will say this, the home crowd at the Diego Armando Maradona has the best crowd, the champions chant out of anybody in Europe. I mean, it's so loud. You can hear it on TV, crystal clear. So kudos to them. But real quick, before we move on to talk about Inter and Benfica, man of the match. This is a difficult one, I think, because so many play over the 2 legs. It's a difficult one because I think so many players stepped up, played really, really well. So your thoughts on who's the man of the match or man of the leg, 2 legs?
I would say cut it into 4 pieces and let it be shared between Mike Maignan, Davide Calabria, Simon Kjaer, and Fikayo Tomori. I like kind of, and if you want to make a 5th piece for Teo Hernandez, you can give him a little bite. But not a big piece. I think, he did some decent things, but he was certainly the weakest of that setup. So, I have a hard time. You could name you could make the argument for any one of those guys though. And I wouldn't fight you on it. Calabria probably most likely for the job he did on Kvaratskhelia. Listen, what did we say last time we talked about Napoli? When you play Kvaratskhelia and you play Osimhen, they're going to get their chances. You have to make it as hard as possible for them. Okay. No. You're not going to take them out of the game. You're not going to play them off the pitch. You're not going to mark them out of a game. They're going to pop up. You have to make it as difficult as possible for them. And I think over the course of the 180 minutes in this tie, and then the 90 minutes at the Maradona here a few weeks ago, they succeeded in that with flying colors.
Yeah, I got. I would say, and I love that shout. I would say I'd split it into 3 ways between Maignan, Calabria, and Krunic. I love what Krunic did over 2 legs. I thought he was fantastic. Unsung hero of the 2 legs. I mean, Calabria, you can't say unsung because everyone saw what he was doing against Kvaratskhelia. But I think what Krunic did quietly in over 2 legs was keep that calm in that midfield, help be the aggressive with Tonali and Benacer back there, and really offensively and defensively helped out a lot. So I like what Krunic did there with Maignan and Calabria. So, but any of those, I mean, anybody in the starting 11, honestly.
Yeah, you could say Leao for how helped to set up the critical goals, and Giroud for scoring, Benacer for his role in being in the position to score in the first leg. I mean, and it was a team effort. It required the commitment of everybody that was out there, and as a result, Milan are through. And I'd love to see both of these teams continue in this tournament. I honestly would.
I
mean, especially with the season that Napoli has had, but there can only be one winner. It was Milan. They were the better team. They took advantage of their chances better than Napoli, and Napoli certainly had more than Milan did. But Milan carried out their game plan better than Napoli carried out theirs. And that's what it came down to, and Milan's in the semis.
And you talked about moving on, and you're talking about one wonderful, masterful in-game manager and Pioli, a tournament manager in Pioli. Move on to another one.
Before we get to that, I want to address a couple of things here.
Okay.
Real quick, a couple of things that just that I want to get off my chest.
Please do.
Activity that happened off the pitch, actually, as Milan were getting on the team bus on the way to the stadium. Napoli fans with monkey chats in the direction of Rafael Leao, and the desire to paint all Napoli fans with a broad brush as a result. I think that's horse shit.
Yes.
Okay. I think Gianni is a class guy. I think Joe Fischetti is a class guy. The Raf and Raf guys are class guys. I speak highly of these guys all the time. Guys that we've had on in the past, James McGee, Ken Ciofreddi. All right. There is a faction of Napoli guys who are really knowledgeable, really good about things, and really do not lump them in the category of the assholes who decided to make asses of themselves in public with the monkey chants. I believe they were in the direction of Leao as they were boarding the team bus. There's video of it. And also those Napoli supporters that were verbally abusing Teo Hernandez and his child and that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Listen, every fan base has classless people. Yes. Our fan base at Milan fans have classless people in their fan base. Okay. I fight with them all the time. It's a part of it, but don't paint all Napoli supporters with a broad brush. There are a lot of classy Napoli supporters who I'm sorry for today because they've had an amazing season and there's a lot that they can be happy about and be proud of.
Yeah. And you can probably say the same thing with any team, insert any team's name there. When their fan bases do idiotic, ridiculous things and painting a broad paintbrush against all that, it's like, no, it's just a small faction of a fan base. Every team has it, as you said.
Yep.
And so that goes with Juventus, Lazio, Inter, all these teams. Don't paint the whole support group as negative. It's not. It's just a few knuckleheads, idiots, and don't blame the whole fan base on that because there are a lot of good, passionate people. We know fans from all teams. They're amazing people. And it has nothing to do with how these idiots act and behave during games and after games and all that stuff. So well said, Frank.
Yeah, if I didn't name you, then you're part of that group. That no, I'm kidding. I just can't remember everybody right now.
Pretty much everyone in our chat, huh? Just kidding. Very good. All right. Well, so as we said, one wonderful in-game manager. Moving on, and that's Stefano Pioli. The other one, Simone Inzaghi, Limone Ball, another fantastic cup manager, and he's got his team in a great position to move into a possible Derby della Madonnina semifinals. What a fantastic way that would be, but we're only halfway there, up 2-0. They're in a good position, but gonna play against Benfica in this one. Roger Schmidt's gonna have his team prepared. I thought we talk about masterful performances by Pioli in the first leg and over both legs, really. And in what Inter did against Benfica in the first leg, winning 2-0. Great goal assist from Bastoni and then Barella with the goal. And then Lukaku getting the consolation penalty, make it 2-0. Wonderfully done. I mean, they couldn't have asked for a better result against Benfica. We said they had to possibly have a lead to go, to move on to the second leg, but this is even better. 2-0. Playing well defensively. They, like Milan, are playing super well in the cup atmosphere, maybe not so much in the league, and it's showing. And it would be a fantastic display for Serie A and for both these clubs to have a derby in the Champions League semifinals as we had 2003. So Thoughts on this game here, because it's a big one for Inter. Inter can't let their guard down. 2-0, though it's nice. It's not the end of the world. It's a game, not game set match.
Interestingly enough, both of them coming off losses at the weekend. Benfica coming off losing to Chavez. Is it Chavez or Chavez? Chavez. I mean, if it's pronounced a little differently in Portuguese, forgive me. A 1-0 defeat that, and just I glanced at Benfica's lineup from that game, and they played a lot of the regular guys. Why did Inter win 2-0 at Benfica? Well, they did a combination of things. First of all, Gonçalo Ramos was a non-factor. He played right into Acerbi. Acerbi did an outstanding job in his man marking of him. They play Rafa Silva in the 10 role, where he's better as a winger. So playing Rafa Silva in the 10 role is almost meat and drink for a guy like Marcelo Brozovic. And then the fundamental mistake Roger Schmidt said, we said last week, was not starting, maybe not start playing David Neres from the start and bringing him off the bench. Neres is going to play from the start. I mean, Benfica are going to have to go after this. And Inter played with quite a bit of rotation as well at the weekend in the loss to Monza. I expect them to bring a relatively similar lineup out to the one that they played with last week. They've got, right now, SofaScore has Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan, and Barella as the three-man midfield. I have to think that Brozovic starts. Skriniar still out. De Vrij doubtful. I think he actually left the Monza game with an injury. So you're going back to Darmian, Acerbi, Bastoni. I think that they're in the same situation. They do have the comfort of playing at home, but the pressure is on Benfica.
Yes.
The longer you keep them out, the better this goes for Inter. You find a way to get one, it goes great. This thing's virtually killed off. But you've got to find a way to just organize, keep them out. And I think that that's the first priority. You keep them out, you're going through. Yeah. The next priority is figuring out where you're going to scratch a goal out of it. So, to try to kill it off. But I expect Inzaghi to organize his team, and I think that this plays exactly into what makes Inter good. They're good in counterattacking situations. Yes. They want to counter, especially at home. So Benfica is going to come after them, and then they're going to be able to hit going the other way. This has a great chance for Lautaro Martinez, who has really struggled here over the last handful of weeks. This is a chance for him to really get right, because I think there's going to be a lot of space for him to get himself into positions to score some goals off of the break. And I think that Benfica may not have an answer for that. Would not surprise me if Lautaro scored. Lacey, if you're listening, and anytime goal bet for Lautaro is pretty intriguing if he starts. Or anybody else that wants to get into that kind of thing, to check the odds on that. But I think because of that, and we always joke, it's Pazzo Inter, and it's a great opportunity for an all Serie A semifinal and get a Serie A team in the final, and it's Inter, they're going to find a way to screw it up. But I don't believe that. I think that Inzaghi has really been this good in cup situations. You don't have to be better than Benfica that's the beauty of cups. You don't have to be better than the team you're playing against over the course of the season. You just have to be better than them for that 90 minutes, or that 80 minutes, or that 180 minutes, in this case with two legs. And I think Benfica score, but I think Inter win 2-1, and they'll go through 4-1 on aggregate. And Inter will Inzaghi will be plenty satisfied with that.
Yeah. I think it's this game suits up perfectly for Inter, because, like you said, Benfica has to go and score goals. They need at least 2 goals to get to extra time at San Siro, or Giuseppe Meazza, as you were going to call it for Inter fans. And what to Inter, their bread and butter is the counter attack, like you said, so they can sit back, much like Milan did against Napoli, kind of sit there and let them have their chances, but be composed back there, kind of dictate the player defensively, and then when they take their opportunities when it presents itself. I know Lautaro has been struggling in Serie A in terms of for goal scoring, but all he needs is one in this game. We saw Barella score a fantastic goal in the first leg. Who would have thought that he would have gotten the end of a header like that by Sony crosses and puts it back in the net? That was wonderfully done by Barella. So anybody can score. They just need one. Honestly, they don't even need anything. As long as they don't give up a goal, like you said, that's task number one. And the way they've been playing in the tournament so far, the way Inzaghi likes to play in the cup, it would not surprise me to see Inter move on. Maybe Benfica get a goal, but at worst, I'm hoping is that Inter get a score draw in this game and move on overall in aggregate. But I think we're going to have a derby semifinal, and that's going to be a fantastic. And you take whatever form you see in the league out the window because it doesn't matter. It's a derby and it's in the Champions League semifinals, and so it's going to be all to play for there. And it's going to be the atmosphere is already fantastic in these games, and then add the Champions League semifinals to it. It's going to be extraordinary, must-see TV. So interesting. Should be interesting tomorrow in a good way for Inter. I think they certainly surprised me in that first leg with a 2-0 victory at Benfica. I wasn't expecting that. Maybe a 1-0 victory, but having a sound lead going into home, you couldn't ask for more if you're an Inter fan. So we'll see what they can do, and maybe they can get all Italian semifinals. And I think both Inter and Milan have, if Inter progress, they have a great opportunity to not only obviously be in the final, but to win the thing. I mean, because we saw Porto in 2004, a team that was on nobody's radar and thought that of all the teams remaining, they're the weaker team. And they go out and Mourinho's team goes out there and wins the whole thing. So it's not out of the element that one of these two teams could win the Champions League. Yeah, you got teams like Real and Man City and Bayern around, but anything is possible in one game affairs. So we'll see what happens. But Inter's got to get the job done first to make it a Derby Milano semifinal.
Plus 187 anytime goal odds for Lautaro Martinez. I'd hammer that if I had sportsbook here in Wisconsin. Plus 500 for Lautaro Martinez to score first. So those are pretty enticing odds. Yeah. So if you bet, you also have to factor in the form hasn't been the greatest. But like I said, this could be the game for him to get right. So you never know. I just took a peek at bet365.com and those were the numbers that I saw. So I've got him winning 2-1 to win 4-1 on aggregate. Where are you at with this?
1-1, 3-1 overall.
1-1, 3-1 overall. Okay, perfect. Let's get to the Europa League on Thursday. Juventus did get a 1-0 win over Sporting Lisbon last week, so now they head to Lisbon. Last time they were in Lisbon, this did not go particularly well for them. They went out to Benfica in the group stage of the Champions League, so they're hoping that they can have a chance to make amends for that. What do we see? We see Sporting Lisbon have so much attacking. They've got plenty of attacking power. Paulinho, Marcus Edwards, Pote through the midfield. Ugarte, who was suspended for the first leg, he'll be back now. To kind of help hold things down in the midfield. You got Isgaio, who is a decent wing back. Nuno Santos. Solid team here that Sporting Lisbon's going to be able to put out against the old lady. Juve rotated in the loss here at the weekend to Sassuolo, showing you that they're prioritizing this competition and are trying to get to the last four. So what do you make of Juve's prospects going to Portugal this time? Is it going to be better this time? Can we give Juve fans something to feel good about?
Something not to feel good about. Sporting have similar colors to Sassuolo, but I digress.
Oops.
No, but I think the way Allegri and his team has been playing lately, in particular in the cup as well, he's another guy who knows he's gotten his team to 2 Champions League finals, been in his previous stint. I think the way they're playing at the moment in Europe, I think going to Portugal and getting a result is not out of the question. I think that's a very doable. 1-1 is very doable. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to win. They've been playing so well defensively on the road. We saw what they did in the last round, and also in our group stages. For the last couple of rounds, I should say. This is a team that, despite their, they went on this long run Serie A and then started to have some stumbling blocks, obviously against Napoli recently, lost to Sassuolo, not getting necessarily the best results recently, also to Lazio. But in Europe, like we talked about with Inter and Milan, they're getting results, and I think they should feel comfortable going on the road to Portugal. It is a difficult place. We'd always talk about it, but I think they probably feel comfortable if they get a goal early. They could probably defense their way all the way out to a 2-0 win, maybe, or something like that, because they've been playing so much better on the road in Europa League. So yeah, I think they're gonna get a result.
I'm gonna just go for a 1-1 kind of game. I'm with Kyle on this. I think that they'll find a way to score. Certainly, Sporting will rally and try to score one and put a lot of the pressure on Juventus to try to force this game into extra time. But in the end, I think it's not going to end well. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a 1-1, sends Juve through. Now you got Roma and Feyenoord at the Olimpico. Last time Feyenoord went to the capital, it was at Lazio, and they lost 4-2 at the very beginning of the group stage of the Europa League. They obviously rebounded nicely from that and qualified. They're leading the Eredivisie. They score a lot of goals. I think that looking at I think Roma reversed this and go through, and I'll give you my explanations. I think that Mourinho got thwarted with Dybala getting hurt in that game and Abraham getting hurt in that game and having to change his plans. We're going to try to factor that. We got to maybe go on the assumption that those kind of things don't happen again. The only thing that makes me concerned, and then, this Roma team scored, 3-4 goals against Udinese at the weekend?
Yeah.
That's a rarity. So Dybala might be back as well. So Dybala, Pellegrini. So I think that Mourinho has a full squad to choose from. This is an important game for Roma because let's remember, they're not while they're sitting in third right now. They're not guaranteed top 4. They need this. And I think they're going to put on a performance that's that's in accordance with that. I think that Feyenoord's an outstanding team. A lot of fun players to watch on that team. We've talked about them: Szymanski and Kokcu and Idrissi and Jahanbakhsh, and then Santiago up front. So I just think that this. I don't like saying somebody else is going to win because it means more. I think that's kind of a chicken shit reason to say a team's going to win, but I think that Rome is going to be confident playing in front of their own fans. I think that's going to be an atmosphere that Feyenoord's not going to be accustomed to, except for when they play at Ajax or something like that. And I think that Roma take care of business. Feyenoord's going to get a goal to make this somewhat interesting. But I'm going to go 3-1 to Roma. I think that they put 3 past Feyenoord. I think they win the game. They win 3-2 on aggregate to go through.
Wow, okay. I know that the Feyenoord have enlisted the services of the Napoli Ultras in this one, so look out for stupidity before and after the game. But yeah, no, I think Feyenoord team is a team that you have to take seriously. Isn't Feyenoord the team that lost to Roma in the Conference League finals last year?
Was that who they lost to?
I think so. But I think the way Mourinho has his team playing, the performance they did against Udinese, what they've been doing in Europe in general, I think, and having a guy obviously like Mourinho who knows how to do it in the cup atmosphere. I think, despite losing in the first game 1-0, Roma had created a lot of chances. Like you said, there were some things that came up that were abnormal, and some of the injuries that happened, and it kind of thwarted them, as you mentioned. Those pieces are back, and we saw how well they played together against Udinese, who's a very good team. I like your shot about them winning. I may not go 3-1, but I must go 2-0. I think Roma do find a way to get through. And what would it say? And this is very, very hypothetical. We don't like playing hypothetical, but let's say Roma do the last year and they win Europa League this year. Would they be a team that you look to in Champions League next year as a considered favorite, considering they did win back-to-back European titles, granted once Conference League, once Europa League? Would you put them in that kind of bracket if they were to win this year?
Well, one, they're going to have the benefit of being a seeded team, so they're going to have a
Okay.
group that might be more manageable to qualify. So you've got Mourinho, who's got tons of experience in that competition. And he's not a dummy. He's not at Roma to play with a team on a budget. There's ownership there that's going to go and find guys. Evan Ndika looks like he's on his way to Roma.
That's a good find if you get him. Yeah,
great get. Yeah, I was wondering where he was going to end up because I think his contract was up, and I think it's a free, which would be a great get for Roma for next year. So I think that you could, I think that if they went on to win this Europa League, I don't know if you'd list them as a favorite, but I think you could look at them as a team that they could reach the last 8 of the Champions League, and it wouldn't surprise me just because of what they've experienced under Mourinho in European competitions.
Yeah.
So
it wouldn't be a Sevilla. They wouldn't be like a Sevilla because Sevilla is another level, right? But you'd have to take them seriously for sure.
Yep. Sevilla's got Europa League DNA, man. They came back. They were 2-0 down to United and 2 United own goals to make it 2-2. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Milan and Real have Champions League DNA. Sevilla are like the king of the crop, and
they're the greatest Europa League club of all time, man.
Yeah. And they win like 3 in a row under a Rakitic or something like that too.
Yeah,
So Feyenoord's a good team. We think that we know they're good, but we both think Roma are going to do the job and move on.
Yep, I agree. Conference League, the only team left, Fiorentina, and they're 4-1 up after winning in Poland against Lech Poznan. They'll wrap that up and reach the last 4. So I don't think there's much we have to talk about there, is there?
No, but I do want to say, okay, Vincenzo Italiano's been doing a masterful job this season with all the tournaments, right? What's more impressive for you, what Pioli and Inzaghi are doing in Champions League, or what Vincenzo Italiano's doing across all fronts, making his team they're in the Coppa Italia finals. They're doing really well now in Serie A, and now they're in the Europa League Conference League semifinals, for lack of a better word. How do you rate Vincenzo Italiano's coaching performance this year compared to the other guys who are deep in tournaments?
I'm going to give the edge to the Milan and Inter guys because while they've had to navigate through a tougher European competition in the Champions League, they're still 4th and 5th respectively. Fiorentina went through the Conference League at the expense of their Serie A form for the longest period of time.
Yeah,
they've recovered nicely, but they're still in 9th.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, they've gone on a nice run here. Probably should have beaten Atalanta on Monday. Watched that game, but I look at this and I say, this is the Milan clubs I think have been more impressive in what they've been able to achieve with reaching the Champions League semifinals and still, maintaining being in position for top 4.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Italian teams in a semifinal of a European tournament. That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Then when
we're not there yet, but
we have a chance to get there. So
we do.
We have a real chance to get there. So that was our European roundup. Let's quick run through what took place on match week 30. It opened up on Friday with Cremonese hosting Empoli. Cremonese. So you're saying there's a chance. Cyril Dessers. I'm sorry.
Dessers.
4th minute in against Empoli, and then they basically just defended like their lives depended on it.
Yeah.
Because Empoli had 68% possession from there on out shooting. They had 15. They just not get anything on target. So Spezia and Lazio winning 3-0 away. Ciro Immobile scoring a penalty in the 36th minute. Felipe Anderson, some beautiful interplay here from Lazio. I can't quite make it a goal of the week because it was almost they almost overpassed it. But nonetheless, Felipe Anderson scored in the 52nd minute to make it 2-0. Ethan Ampadu getting a red card in the 84th minute for a foul, and then it was a counterattack goal by Marcos Antonio in the 89th minute to seal the deal for Lazio, get them another 3 points, get them some distance on their top 4 rivals. Important. 3 games taking place. Milan rotating 10 guys in between the Napoli games and coming away with a 1-1 draw. The game started maybe about 30 seconds before Milan were ready to play. And that's when Bologna scored. It was Nicola Sansone from Stefan Posch again. What a season Posch is having. Posch is arguably the best right back in Serie A. Arguably.
And I put him in top 5 in Europe right now. Arguably.
So I mean, and just low key amazing. I mean, team of the season candidate for sure. Right now, I mean, Di Lorenzo's having a great season. Calabria, obviously, off of some of his nice performances, and it has to be said, Dumfries has been really good too for Inter. So, just to name some names, but man, I'll tell you what, Stefan Posch has been. If you want to just do it based on importance to your team, Stefan Posch probably outweighs all of those guys. So, Tommaso Pobega with a goal of the week candidate in the 40th minute levels the score. Milan had a lot of chances to go on and win this game. Despite the rotated lineup. Napoli rotated and played to a 0-0 draw with Hellas Verona. They not so exciting to watch when you don't have the big guns out there. Managed to still get 10 shots on Verona, but only was able to muster one on target. Inter rotated and lost at the hands of Monza, 1-0. I think we kind of speculated that maybe, just maybe, Inter might lose this game. Monza might win this game.
Galliani effect, Berlusconi effect.
Yep, but doing it for Berlusconi as he's recovering from some of his ailments. Bunga parties going on for months.
Is that 6 points from Inter this season they've taken?
Yes.
And 4 from Juventus.
6 from Inter and 4 from Juventus, and then
0 from Milan.
0 from Milan. So
Galliani
they did Milan.
effect.
B&G doing their old club a solid, I guess.
Yeah.
Probably be the best way. It was Caldirola who scored for Monza there in the 78th minute, giving them a big victory for their push to possibly finish top half. Moving on to Sunday's action. Sofa scores being really slow today. Lecce and Sampdoria, man, everybody just draws these days. 1-1 between Lecce and Sampdoria. Giuseppe had a goal of the week candidate with a little dink there in the 75th minute. That was an equalizer. Asan Cisse scoring in the 31st. Torino and Salernitana. Villena scoring for Salernitana. Sanabria scoring for Torino. Sassuolo beating a rotated Juventus side by a 0-0. Goal by Gregoire Defrel in the 64th minute. Roma maybe didn't rotate as much as everybody else did and won 3-0. It was Eduardo Bove following up after they let Brian Cristante take a penalty, really?
It shows.
Yeah, it shows. And Bove had to clean up his mess for him. Lorenzo Pellegrini in the 55th minute. Goal of the week candidate, really, because of the pass from Belotti.
That was a great pass.
It's a wonderful ball there. Tammy Abraham in the 91st to wrap that game up. And then on Monday, we had Fiorentina at Atalanta in a 1-1 draw. Yoki Mela, goal of the week candidate there. And listen, these weren't worldies, guys, okay? We're trying to pick, like, just about all of the goals this weekend were average.
Yeah.
So
the layout to Giroud goal today was better than all of them.
I agree. Very much agree. So Mela scored to make it 1-0, and then Fiorentina were awarded a penalty that Cabral finished 1-1 there. To be fair, I think Fiorentina were the better team in this game. Richard, where do you want to start?
Well, first I want to start with a comment by Apex saying, what if we had 3 Italian European champions in one season? That would be amazing.
We love that.
I would love that. So where do we want to start? Obviously a crazy slate. The 3 teams on Friday, the 3 teams in Champions League, all rotated heavily for good reason, right? They take the Champions League seriously. Milan dominated their game, got a draw. Napoli, for the most part, dominated their game in a slow game. They drew. Inter snake bitten again with the goal scoring, and Monza playing opportunistic. They beat him the first time, and Caldirola got a goal. Well, it was ended up being an own goal by Dumfries, but Monza won that game too. It's just tight. Like, seems like Napoli, it's okay that they drew, and I think also Milan as well. If Inter had gotten a draw, it wouldn't be as bad. But the fact that they lost is a big thing, because they're turning in the top 4, and both Milan and Inter are turning in the top 4. And at least get a draw in your games. Getting a loss like this is huge, and it's huge implications because the two Roman clubs, they're playing very well at the moment. Lazio's kind of extended their lead in second place. Roma have now got a nice little cushion over Milan, and so it's really up to the two Milanese clubs to kind of battle out for that fourth position. And so, both teams. I know, as much as we see the Milan side of things, where people are going at each other for how the coaching is and this and this. The Interisi side, they're doing the same thing, and I was watching the tweets go back and forth. It's funny watching it because we're going through the same things, and it's hard when you take the Champions League so seriously. You're focusing on that, and you give up a little bit in the league games, and at a time where it matters, points matter. Losing to a team like Monza you can't have that, and it goes for both Milanese clubs. You can't lose this time of year. Getting draws is okay. You rather get a win, obviously, but losing. I mean, this is a bad loss against Monza. Yes, we know they're heavily rotated, but you got to find a way to get results. If if they don't make the Champions League top four, they're gonna look back at games like this and other games that they've blown, and say, what would have happened? What if we had gotten a point out of that instead of a loss, right? And so, Monza, they continue to be a team that we thought they would do well, but not this good. And against the bigger teams is when they've shown up, whether it's Berlusconi's motivation of the bunga parties or whatnot. Monza have found a way to play serious ball, especially against the bigger teams, and be on the lookout for them in the next couple of years, because they could be contenders in the Seven Sisters. But an interesting game, well done by Monza to get the 3 points, and put Inter in a little bit of a pickle here, losing all 3 points.
Yep. Agreed there. Now, there is a twist in the plot of all of this top four. The Juventus 15 points penalty, the appeal is tomorrow, April 19th.
Yes.
So,
both Milan clubs out of it?
What's that?
Both Milan clubs would be out of it then?
This would push both Milan clubs out. This would move Milan down to 5th. This would move
Juve to
Inter
3rd.
down to 6th.
Yeah.
And the 15 points would restore Juve and put them in 3rd on 59 points.
Roma on 56, yeah.
Yeah. So we will have to, learn what they're going to do about this. Now,
yeah.
What do you think the chances are that they're successful in this appeal? I think the resignation of all of the top officials tells you something.
Yeah.
Okay. On the one end. On the other end, the Italian courts are crazy.
Yes.
Okay.
FIGC's crazy. Italian courts are crazy.
And that might be an understatement.
Crazy. Yes.
So, what do you anticipate happening tomorrow?
Some of the reports I've been reading are that I don't know what's going to happen. And I think, not knowing what's going to happen, I think they're just going to keep the 15 points deduction. Because I've read some reports that, that Juve are going to get their points back, or the point deduction will be reduced. I've heard other reports that they're going to increase the points because they have really damning facts. So I don't know. And based on I don't know, I'm going to call it a draw and say it's going to say it's 15 points, because I think there's enough evidence to say that they have been doing some stuff. We're now finding that other teams are involved. We knew about Napoli, but now they're talking about Roma now. Roma's sporting director had to resign because he got caught in something similar too. So I don't see Juventus getting their points back, and then maybe they do. And it is what it is, right? Because you said everything's crazy over there. But I'm gonna say that they don't get any points, and it's funny because I talked to Alex Del Piero on CBS Sports Golasso, and they asked him about this, and he's like, "Look, whatever happens, just wait till the end of the season to change the points, because it's too crazy." And I agree with him. It's too crazy to change the points during the season because, like you said, for all the teams, the top 6 teams, top 7 teams, this affects them dramatically. The first to 15 points with the deduction for Juventus, and now if they were to get the 15 points back or whatever, change of formation, you put a lot of teams in peril because they don't know what the hell's going on, and they have to wait on the decision here. So wait till the end of the season to make your judgment. But yeah, I say nothing happens and they keep the point deduction. What are your thoughts?
I'm with you, because I think that there is also another case right now that's hanging over Juventus's head that's going to complicate all of this, which is the Prisma investigation.
Yeah.
And basically, among the documentation uncovered was, and I'm reading this from a piece on CBSSports.com, Among the documentation uncovered was what was initially termed a black book belonging to then sporting director Fabio Paratici, now at Tottenham. The Athletic subsequently reported that the so-called Libro Nero FP was instead a sheet of paper belonging to director Federico Cherubini. The crucial note that he had made in the section strategy said excessive use of artificial plusvalenza before drawing an arrow to immediate benefit and amortization load. So if you're in accounting, you know exactly what all this means.
Yeah. We do not. We're not, so we do not know. But
it's probably bad.
Would you agree with Del Piero that if it is less points or more points, you don't change anything now and wait till the end of the season, or do you want to see the points change right now?
The players, on the one end, I feel for because the players didn't engage in all this false accounting. You know,
how would they know? Why would they? Why would they know?
And I'm the biggest needler of Juventus people, or one of them. Okay, so it's alleged that Juventus engaged in an entirely different kind of false accounting than the transfer ones discovered on that sheet of A4 relating to player salary, and that this is a criminal rather than a sporting investigation. And the sanctions for associated parties could extend far beyond just points and football bans. And allegedly, Juventus secretly paid players who said they would be going without wages for 4 months during the COVID-19 pandemic. The club had reported a 90 million euro saving from the wage cut. In reality, it should have been around 22.5 million. So this is some of the stuff that Il Fatto Quotidiano reported that Giorgio Chiellini had told players in a WhatsApp group that they would be getting their money back, instructing them to not reveal these payments and stating that Juventus would only announce the 4-month salary waiver.
I know De Sciglio has been one that they've interviewed, and he's supposedly told the truth, and everyone's like, "Why are you telling him?" He's like, "I just told him, the truth. I'm not going to lie about anything, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about any of this case, the in-depths. I know there's a lot of talk about the Calcio and all this other stuff, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I've heard news that there's Juve could get docked more, but I've also heard the other side of it where people said, "Oh, they're going to get absolved and they'll be fine and they're going to get their points back." So I don't know, and because of I hear both sides, I'm going to say they're going to keep the 15-point deduction, and that's what it is. But it's certainly bizarre. It's not just Juventus, because we're gonna hear about Napoli coming in the offseason. We're gonna hear about Roma, as we just saw in the news with their sporting director fired, or resigning. It's several teams. It's not just Juventus, but they have been the ones who've done it the most, at least brought it to the eyes of the masses more than anybody else. And so naturally they're going to be the ones scrutinized. And as Del Piero says, he says like, "Oh, we're the most hated team in Serie A." I was like, yeah, well, sometimes you do it to yourself too, right?
I just think there's too many things hanging over Juve, and that they might use this 15-point penalty, if not for what was immediately applied to, they could, that it could end up being applied to something else, or it could get reduced a little bit. Best case scenario. I have a hard time seeing this getting but we'll find out. Like I said, these Italian courts are crazy. You never know what they're thinking.
Maybe they not only give them 15 points back, to give them 15 points extra, and so they're going to be in first place somehow.
You never know. You never know. I mean, if Calcio is really alive and well, then that's what's going to happen. No, let's get back to what's going on the pitch. I mean,
where were we? I don't even know.
Yeah, let's come back. Let's talk about the bottom of the table, because Cremonese wins again.
Yeah.
Spezia certainly not helping themselves much lately. No. Lecce not helping themselves much lately. Salernitana just wants to tie everybody.
That's good result. Better than the other guys.
And it's getting a little slick for Empoli. I think Monza's back next year. Congratulations to them. 38's perfectly fine.
Yes.
But I still think anybody 32 on down is still sweating a little bit. Yeah. I still think Verona get out at the expense of Spezia for sure. But if Lecce continue to fall apart the way they're doing, you can make Cremonese's playing better, and you can make the case that Cremonese could get out of this too. So,
yeah, Sampdoria, I don't see it for them. They're gonna replace Genoa, and Genoa's gonna come up next year. I like your shot about Hellas. A nice result against Napoli this weekend. They're finding a way to collect points, and Spezia are not. And then Cremonese, like you said, they're playing a little bit better. Will it be enough to catch somebody else? I don't know. We'll see. But I like your shot about Hellas making it out and Spezia going down. So
yeah, Genoa sitting. I'm looking at the Serie B table. Frosinone is on 67. They're 10 points clear. Was it 20 teams in the league? Yeah. So Frosinone is in prime position for automatic promotion. Genoa will be next in line, 6 points clear of Bari. The teams in the playoff places: Bari, Südtirol, Cagliari, and Parma. So,
imagine Bari coming back, huh? With that huge stadium.
And that was quick.
Yeah.
Then what do you do with De Laurentiis, who owns Napoli and Bari?
Yeah. We already got rid of Salernitana. Now it's Bari.
Yeah. So they're going to have to figure that out. My guess is that De Laurentiis took Bari, gets him back into Serie A. Basically, it's like flipping a house, and then he'll sell it to, another business, group of business owners or something like that. So, that's what I can anticipate.
And I was thinking Lotito with Lazio and Salernitana. So
yeah, it was Lotito with Lazio and Salernitana. You're right. So, so we'll see. Pisa and Regina are probably a couple of teams that are still in the conversation for the playoff places. They're sitting just 2 points back of that. Just worth talking about Serie B and what we can look and what we can anticipate.
I mean, look at Cremonese last year. They weren't one of the teams you're looking at Serie B to come out, but they did. They nailed that tournament, right? The playoff tournament. That's what got them through, I think, because Lecce and Monza certainly were the cream of the crop, I think, of last season, but Cremonese came out kind of out of nowhere, and who was it? It was I mean it was Reggiana, or I can't remember last year who it was, but there's a team who was a favorite, and Cremonese kind of surprised everybody the way they played in the tournament, and they got themselves in. So, yeah, good for them. Anything can happen in Serie B, and it usually does in these playoffs. That's what that's what we love about cup ties and playoffs, is that anything can happen really, and you get a team that plays well. All of a sudden, you do well for the 90 minutes or the 180 minutes, and anything can happen. And so, whatever you've done for the season really doesn't matter as long as you get to that point and you get your sniff at the window, and then you bring your A game there. So we'll see what happens in the tournament, but I'm excited for it to see who comes up. Bari would be amazing. That would be my pick, but that
would be mine too. They seem to be the most attack oriented of the teams. Yeah, in the playoff positions, they've scored 50 goals in Serie B this season.
You said Parma was in the playoff spot too?
Yeah, they're in 6th.
Okay. Buffon back.
Yeah. Südtirol has been very tight in how they play.
Yeah.
They defend well, but they also don't score a lot.
Could do well in the tournament.
Yeah. So that kind of that exactly, those kind of that kind of profile is pretty good for a tournament promotion. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. I would certainly like to see teams that try to go for it. Remember Pisa, Regina, a little too far for Modena or Palermo. I think at this point it would take a miracle for those guys to jump into the top 6.
Palermo would be fantastic. Cagliari coming back, if they're ready, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see who makes it out of this.
I think Palermo is back in 2 years.
Okay. Como
within the next few years.
Como has Fabregas, right? Fabregas is there at Como.
Is Fabregas playing at Como?
I think so. Yes.
Man, that's where I would play. I mean, I've been to Como. I would,
hell yeah.
But absolutely, if I'm in my 30s and like in the twilight of my career, that's where I play.
And if he imagine he gets him to Serie A, he'd be a god there for the rest of his life. He wouldn't buy anything. He'd free everything.
It's a beautiful town off that, and off that lake and all that other stuff. I mean, I'd absolutely go there. So we got to find goals of the week out of this just heap of just. I mean, the goals were just so uninspiring. I mean, it was the results themselves were kind of cool and intriguing with a lot of the rotation that went on.
Yes.
And again, we're going to talk. Just to revisit this talk about rotation, because we went on a rant on it earlier. I said the team, if you're going to go deep into European competitions, you're going to have to rotate a little bit. You might even have to rotate a lot in the case of Milan, because they changed 10 guys for the Bologna game and still put on a performance where they almost won.
Yeah, they dominated that game. against a good Bologna team. Give me go first. Give you inspiration.
Yeah, have at it.
Honorable mention. I'm gonna go Miele. Nice solo run by him. Also, Sportiello had a nice save at the death. Worth a note there. Number 5 for me, Marcos Antonio. Nice solo run for Lazio. The 3rd goal of the game for them. Well done there. Number 4 for me, Pobega with his strike. Number 3, Jesse, is more of a team goal. I thought it was really well done there by Sampdoria. Number 3. Number 2, I'm going Vilhena. Nice. I thought it was a nice volley by him to beat the keeper. And then number 1, I'm not even going to go goal. I'm going to go goalkeeper. Consili, his save on Rabiot in the 73rd minute. Up 1-0. That could have been a game-tying goal. And it was headed for the corner. And wonderful save by Consili. The guy is very underrated as a goalkeeper. He makes some spectacular saves. He has some WTF moments, but he's a really good goalkeeper. And he showed it in that play.
Man, what a heap. This is the worst goals of the week we've had. Yeah. I'm gonna, nobody wins. That's my take. Nobody wins. I mean, I do kind of want to say Pobega, but then that's kind of homerism almost.
Yeah.
Giuseppe's goal was good, and Pellegrini for the Belotti pass, and then Mela. Those are the 4.
Yeah.
And they were all. I mean,
Belotti assist of the week. There you go.
Average in quality. When we've been spoiled by goals like the individual goal by Kvaratskhelia and the and some half field worldies by Biraghi and Gajic and and the volley by Berardi way back at the beginning of the season. I mean, it's just like we've been spoiled to just see as such a just meh on the goal department. So but that happens from time to time. I guess we've got to live with it.
Yeah.
So,
true.
Well, with all of that done and behind us, we're now on to the world's most popular hashtag game, Richard. It's time for Who Won Calcio Twitter.
All right, leading us off, it's at Statuos. Let me start from the beginning here. And it's Mancini and his team when a 24-year-old Paraguayan buys an extra olive oil bottle, and it's... All right, this is it, people. Let's go. We got to get him. We got to hire him. We got to...
Very nice. Statutos has been on the board a few times in the past.
Yes.
All right. So the next one is at TV dello Sport. I thought Tancredi Palmieri was dead.
Yeah. So this would happen during a live telecast. Someone puts cocaine right in front of his screenshot, and it's right here. Here you go. Bag of cocaine right there. And he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And it's like VAR. It does a slow motion. Oh, this is during live TV. Only in Italy, right? Only in Italy.
That is okay. That is for Sport Italia. Okay.
Yeah. He's still alive.
So they threw a bag of cocaine in front of. Yeah. I guess we just never hear from him anymore. So.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
Hold on. I gotta catch my place again. I got so excited with the cocaine. I kind of lost my place. Okay. I know where I'm at now.
You got excited by cocaine?
Apparently.
I thought I knew you better than that.
All right, moving
on. You're the guy in Superbad that's in there where
yeah.
You gonna do a line of cocaine? Yeah. Or something like that.
All right, moving on. Art Vandelay, Tony Malay 7. Napoli in cup competitions this season. Juventus.
We like that one. Well played. Okay. The Bayern lost to Manchester City at Johnny Rules 27. Damn, De Ligt took the loss so bad he started being a waiter at this cafe I'm at.
You got to get money somehow, right?
Yeah.
All right. So next one comes from Saturnion. Says Rahmani whenever layout does anything more than a jog. All right.
We like that. All right. Moving on. That's an ad. That doesn't help me. All right, Art Vandelay is on the board again. Milan will win their 8th before we win our 3rd, despite the banter years.
Happy and then crying.
Hey, what's going on?
That's Pedro Pascal right there. All right. Bob says nominates this one, and it's okay. Start from the beginning. It's just from Paris Snitch, of course. Inter and Milan in the Champions League semifinals after enduring the banter eras together. Gonna hit each other? Like, wait a minute, hey. With Juventus crying in the background, yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, moving on to Italian football news at Foot Italia 1. The Noi Consumatori and Napoli Club Maradona, Napoli supporters groups, and lawyer Pisani have a class action ready for the refereeing of Kovac in Milan-Napoli, claim for damages of 150 million euros against UEFA. At the basis of the action are the decisions of the referee who risked breaking the dream of an entire city. UEFA cannot treat Naples and Napoli in this way.
Okay. That's a new one for me, but I'll take it. Gosh.
Is that legit?
It is legit. It is
Oh,
legit. That's
God.
the funny part. It's legit.
Oh, man.
Oh, all right.
This never disappoints whenever Bonetti puts this up.
Yeah, Bonetti, XG 0.78, 41.7, and they win in Allegri masterclass. Obviously, Sanremo or whatever he's dancing at here. Dancing with the Stars. Dancing with the Stars. So.
Yeah. The Italian version of it.
Yes. All right.
All right. Moving on. Vinaldum versus Udinese. This was nominated by Anthony.
Just walk fast everywhere you go.
That's all Vinaldum did in the game.
Look like
Walk
you're
fast.
working hard at work.
At Mussolino. That would look busy at work.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. Next one comes from Saturniano once again. It's Roma fans realizing they can't flex the last Italian club in Champions League semifinal trophy anymore. All right.
All right. Moving on. At the Milanisti 11, pretty simple. Milan further in the UCL than Donnarumma has ever been.
Laughing. Any other ones? Yes. Apex nominates another one. This comes from Inter Germany. Imagine Inter or Milan win the Champions League. I can see the fans pulling out a banter saying "Grazie Hakan" in Italian and Turkish. Imagine it would be amazing. Milan and Inter holding arms and jumping together with the trophy.
I don't know about that.
It'll never happen. Never happen.
At AC Milan SF.
Okay. Creative.
I like that.
All right. Creative.
I like that. I think so.
All right.
All right.
One
And then
more.
Sabrina made a nomination.
Yes. So originally the tweet was Sabrina says, I remember actually crying when Donnarumma couldn't sign. If I knew then what I know now. And then Sabrina remembered left Gigi for a greener pasture. That's a greener pasture. Time to sack it up.
All that money. Well, we had some good ones. Okay, I think that we've got AC Milan as a Milan Club in San Francisco. Thought that was very creative.
Yes.
I think let's throw in what was the first one from Vandalay that he sent? Oh yeah, Napoli in cup competitions this season. That's a good one.
I like his other one where Milan will win their eighth before we win our third, despite the banter eras. And the guys
and Statutos also I think are the finalists for me. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with it. I mean, it's Milan's day. We're going with it at Milan Club San Francisco, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I got no objections. Like the goals, it was very tight, so I'll go with that one.
All right, so that is. Congratulations to Milan Club San Francisco. Very creative. You are the winner of this week's Who Won Calcio Twitter. Richard, you got some words for the people?
No, just thank you for everyone who joins us in the chat each and every week. Apex caught you early in the chat this week, dethroning Mr. Anthony there. But no, yeah, it's Champions League time. We're just excited to see what Inter can do tomorrow. Big game. As big a game as a game today. So Benfica, Inter with a 2-0 lead in this one. We have a chance of all Italian semifinals at Derby della Madonnina. You know that's the biggest derby in the world, and now with the high stakes of Champions League semifinals, with a chance to go to the finals, it's going to be crazy with the tifos. Must see TV. Make sure you tell your work that Dr. Ibrahimovic has to see you on both those days for whatever. because you do not want to miss the tifos for both those games. So yeah, excited, and that's about it, man.
I agree with everything you just said. We do have a matter of April 23rd, 2:45 Eastern, Juventus and Napoli.
Yeah.
Should be special. We'll see if we'll see if Juventus is in third or if they're still sitting where they're sitting based on the appeal tomorrow. So
Judgment Day tomorrow.
Yep. So we'll find out, because that's kind of an important thing, certainly worth keeping your eye on. I mean, I think with everything that continues to kind of hang around Juventus, it's going to be really, really hard to. I think, and if common sense prevails, it's hard for the appeal to be overturned. But again, Italian courts are crazy. You never know what they're going to do. So
I should have left the Benny Hill music on.
No doubt about it. And I think with that, we're going to put a bow on this edition of Serie A Sit Down. And again, I want to echo Richard's comments. Chat, awesome job. Thank you guys for your contributions and being part of it. Serie A Sit Down, we have our own channel on Apple Podcasts, on SoundCloud. You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there's podcasts. There is Serie A Sit Down. You can go to @Serie A Sit Down on Twitter or Instagram for your comments, questions, thoughts. Hashtag Who Won Calcio Twitter nominees. Please put those on Twitter. Keep it clean, keep it civil. We're trying to do this for fun. We're trying not to piss anybody off. Here on the YouTube channel, if you're here for the first time, please drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. The notification bell tells you when we go live. It's been Tuesday nights just because of the European run that all of our Serie A teams are on, and we want to give the European run its due diligence. It's, in the 7 years that Richard and I have done this, we have not had now down to 5 teams this deep in European competition. Yeah. So it's kind of an exciting thing. So, please do all of that for us and help promote the YouTube channel here for Serie A Sit Down. We'd appreciate it. So, anything else, Richard?
No, as always, you can follow me at R_KHARMAN, but follow us on Serie A Sit Down is more important.
Yep, and follow me at FTC_21. We will be back again next Tuesday night, 9:00 Eastern, here on the YouTube channel. And until then, enjoy Inter Benfica, enjoy our Serie A teams playing in the European Conference Leagues. Let's get 5 teams into the semifinals. That would be amazing. Across the 3 competitions. For Richard, I'm Frank. As always, tell your paisans about us. Ciao.